even on the Appalachian Trail, which I haven't talked about, like there's all these old farms in Vermont and New Hampshire, which there's still the remnants of rock walls, and you're constantly just climbing over those, and it's just complete forest, and there's nothing for miles around. But somebody used to live there, and they had a farm, and they built walls out of rocks, and the remnants are still there. So there's lots of mine shafts. I think I have 1 or 2 pictures of mine shafts in the Colorado area that are just abandoned, and they're just sitting there open. You can stick your head in and shine a flashlight down and say, oh, that goes pretty deep, I can't see the bottom. But they're not closed off or anything. It's fun to explore. And then more recent abandoned things. There's quite a few things like this that are out there in the American West that are sort of interesting. But at this point I'm in Colorado, hiking southward. The thing I remember about Colorado is you're always above probably 11, 12,000 feet. And every day at probably 1, 2 p.m., thunderstorms would roll in, and you would just see lightning somewhere. And it was hard to judge, is that lightning coming towards me? Is it going away from me? Is it going to stay on the other ridge over there? So it was always a little bit dicey. But you can see where the trees are, so that was always sort of the strategy, is we would just, if we found the lightning storm was like closing in on us, we would just run down that slope. The good thing was if you went far enough down these slopes, there was always Forest Service roads. So that did force us several times to kind of get off of the ridge and just hike a Forest Service road for a few miles and then wait out the storm and then try to go back up on the ridge. But you can see there's still no trail there. So a lot of northern Colorado still doesn't have trail as well. Around Denver is where the Colorado Trail starts, and then it actually gets really nice. I didn't know there were mountain goats in Colorado, but it's, I associated them with like the northern Rockies, but there they were in Colorado. And then fall hit, and the aspens all changed color. It's my first fall out west, where it's just, there's only aspens that turn this like gorgeous yellow, golden. And soon after that, a snowstorm came and dropped probably 3 feet of snow where I was. It was in southern Colorado, I think, at this point. And we had to get off the trail for a few days for that, and just waited out for some of the snow to melt. This was still like mid to early September at this point. But when you're above 12,000 feet, just the slightest drop in temperature turns to snow. So I'm almost out of time, and my trail journal ran out of pictures because of like a server issue, so I said, oh, well, I guess I'll just skip to New Mexico. And hiked on through southern Colorado and New Mexico, which there's so many things that I missed, but southern Colorado and the San Juans, and New Mexico and the Gila Wilderness, like I would definitely go back to. Northern New Mexico is also gorgeous in a lot of different ways, a lot of high elevation mountains. But the Boot Hill is flat and deserty and not really exciting, a lot of road walking. But that's where we finished. And I finished with basically the same folks that I started with. Skittles, Disco, and POD were 3 of the folks that I started with on the very first day. And ended with them as well. And then No Trace was the guy who hiked half the trail northbound. So I also knew him really well. So I think of those folks there, I think everyone except POD that was the end of the Triple Crown. So among hikers, it's kind of a point of pride. So I think POD actually bought tiaras for us and had a coronation ceremony, so it was very interesting. Go ahead.
Is he nicknamed after the band, POD?
No, she is, it stands for Princess of Darkness.
D&D?
Princess of Darkness?
Dungeons and Dragons and stuff?
I don't actually know. I think she has a very dark sense of humor. Yeah, go ahead.
So, if you were to look back in time, you only could have done one of the 3 trails.
Yeah.
Which would you have done?
Oh, PCT, that's easy.
Yeah.
Pacific Crest, yeah. It's
and why?
it's more pleasurable hiking. For me, sometimes I like to get lost in thought as I'm walking, so the CDT is no good because you have to focus all the time. Just the technical challenge of the CDT was fun at times, but when you're just tired and there's horse flies all around you and you get lost and that was a bummer sometimes. The AT was just, the ups and downs were pretty intense, where the elevation is so much lower on the AT, but it's just, you're going straight up a mountain, straight down a mountain, straight up a mountain, straight down a mountain. New England, there's no switchbacks, so it's rocks and roots, and that was the worst I ever got hurt, was in New England on the Appalachian Trail, where my tendons and joints were just so sore, and it hurt to get up. It was also the very first time I had through hiked anything. So
what about the advance of the gut hooks app? Would totally change the CDT. You wouldn't have to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Now, have you hiked with that app?
No, I haven't.
No. Okay. I mean, it tells you where you're at.
Yeah.
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 It's a game changer.
Cell phones were like, should we bring cell phones or no? In 2006, it was just starting to get to that question. And I did several hikes in later years with cell phones, and it was just like, oh. So, No Trace had a little solar charger that he charged his iPad with, because he listened to music when he hiked, and that was always an issue. It was I can carry things, but how do I get charging or battery power for it? And there's solutions for all that now, so it's a total game changer for sure.
So how much did you pack weight, as you got more experience?
Let's see, I think the base weight was a little under 30 pounds. But I was I had my creature comfort, so I was on the heavier end. There were guys out there, none of these folks really, No Trace was pretty light. They would get down to 12, 15 pounds. So, yeah, they gave up a lot though. They didn't have clothes to change into. They had a super lightweight sleeping bag. Yeah.
So what was your luxury items out of BCT?
I carried lots of extra socks, so it was things like that. I mean, it was luxury for me, socks. So I had I think 3 sets of clothes, which everyone thought was a luxury. I usually carried 2 books with me. So I carried.
They weren't on your Kindle?
Yeah. I carried Sometimes a Great Notion with me, the Ken Kesey book.
Oh, yeah.
Which is it's a thick book, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read, and it's about logging in Oregon. So it's just I wanted to save it until I was in Oregon. So I started to read it, and I got halfway through, and I was like, I gotta wait until Oregon. So I just carried it the whole way. And I would hike with people, and they would read a book, and they would tear out every page, and they'd either use it as toilet paper or burn it. And I was like, I really like this book. I want to give it to somebody, so I just carried it. Yeah. And then sometimes someone would send me a book or give me a book, and I would be like, well, I gotta carry this too. That's rude. Somebody sent me, I'm from Kentucky, and somebody sent me a bottle, about a half a bottle of Woodford Reserve, just in the mail, just loose in the mail. And I opened it and was like, oh. So it was a glass bottle of Woodford Reserve, so I carry that. I either wasn't smart enough or didn't have the wherewithal to actually put it in something lighter, so I just carried a glass bottle. I think though I would charge people that I hiked with, I'd say you have to carry it if you want to drink any of it. So I did tax people that I hiked with to say, I'll share the Woodford with you, but you got to carry it all day. But yeah, I think I had sent out to all my friends and all the people I knew. The way that I resupplied was either I would go into town and just buy whatever, but I would send people care of general delivery. I'm going to be in this town at approximately this day. So if you want to send me cookies, if you want to send me anything I can eat, I love all these different things. And it was Christmas every single town I went into, because you would go to the post office and they would say, I got 5 packages for you.
Wow.
And it was usually, I had to start doing that before I went grocery shopping, and then I would just eat peanut butter cookies sometimes for 3 days, because there were just so many baked goods that people would send. And people would send unsolicited things like really heavy books. They're like, you have all this time that you're hiking, and I'm like, okay. But yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We had a crew today cleaning up